Why is the West, and particularly America, pushing their social agenda so hard on the Africans?
Africans are waking up, Arabs are waking up, everybody's waking up against the white supremacist and who he really is. He come to take, and give nothing.
9 of the 20 fastest growing economies in the world are going to be in Africa in 2025. Everybody's overlooking it.
A lot of Westerners see African people side with Russia. Then they jump to the conclusion that they are bad guys as well. But actually, it's the West that's been propagandized to think that the West is good.
Because they feared what Africa might become. In 1974, the USA government wrote a classified report called the NSSM 200, also known as the Kissinger Report.
2050, it is projected that the African continent, if nothing happens, is projected to have 2.5 billion people. So the purpose of the Western world, because they want the resources, understand? And you have to think about this. In the Western world, their birth rates are in the toilet. They're not producing children whatsoever. They're not. They are afraid. 2050 is not that far off from now. In 25, like almost 25 years or so, a little bit more than 25, their birth rates and their population is going to be even more in the toilet while you have an explosion of population on the African continent. Why is that concerning to the Western world? Because the more Africans that's in the world, the more it's going to eventually stand up against you. Because guess what? We have the numbers. You're not the big bad anymore because we got the numbers. Your time of rule is over, and you will never have the control, respect, and anything that you once had. And we've seen globally how that's moving around. Nobody respect them anymore. Nobody listen to them anymore. Everybody look at them like, whatever, like that. That's happening more and more and more. Listen, they privilege only lasts in the shores of America. When they go to other countries, people looking at them like, man, what the hell, like that about them now. That's starting to happen. That never happened at all in the past. Africans are waking up. Arabs are waking up. Everybody's waking up against the white supremacist and who he really is. He come to take, and give nothing. The Western world, they love watching the African continent is not progressing, things falling apart. They cool with that. But the purpose of trying to force LGBT on these different countries is to do what? Slow the population down of the African continent from getting to 2.5 billion people or more. If they can do that, successfully do it, like they have done in the United States, let's look at the black community. They introduced baby deletion back in the 70s, 20 plus million black children, gone. Then later down the line, they introduced LGBT. What happened with the black population there? That also affects the black population, also bring in confusion. They want to bring that same thing to the African continent. I want my brothers and sisters in the African continent to listen to me. Listen to your brother. What's happening over here in America is you seeing the spiraling down of this country. Not because it's our fault. Black America has nothing to do with it. And everybody trying to partner with the African continent because that's where the resources is at. Understand? They can't even try to even harm. See, that's what y'all talking about. The African continent is actually the safest place for you to be, because if you say, oh, they'll just destroy, they can't destroy the African continent, because if they destroy the African continent, they destroy themselves. Y'all need to understand that. They can't destroy all those minerals. They can't destroy all those, all the oil and the diamonds and all that they making money off of, all the chocolate they getting, right? They can't destroy that. They need that. If they also try to nuke the African continent, they might well nuke themselves, because they're going to be gone at the end too.
9 of the 20 fastest growing economies in the world are going to be in Africa in 2025. Everybody's overlooking it. Only 0.5% of the world's private equity and venture capital is going into Africa, despite the fact that it's going to be the only continent with a growing population. A marketplace is all about consumers and producers instead of people on the tail end of life that are draining money out of an economy. Africa has a vibrancy. They're able to just step over the traditional landline telecom. They're technology. They're digital natives. They're growing. They've got an incredible work ethic. They've got stable democracies now in many cases. Africa as an industry, as a concept, is the most overlooked, undervalued investment opportunity for entrepreneurs and investors right now in 2025.
They didn't want Africa's population to grow. This is an interesting one because they feared what Africa might become. In 1974, the USA government wrote a classified report called the NSSM 200, also known as the Kissinger Report. It laid out a strategy for controlling population, growing in developing nations. But here's what they didn't say out loud. It wasn't about global health or poverty. It was about resources, oil, minerals, access, control. The report specifically named 13 countries they feared would grow too fast. One stood out, Nigeria, the only African country on the list. Why? Because a powerful, growing African population could challenge USA interests. They feared young, rising populations could lead to uprisings, nationalism, or governments that might say, no more cheap deals, no more stolen resources. The Kissinger Report warned that the USA needed to control these populations, not directly, but by funding local family planning initiatives. The language was very careful, voluntary, non-coercive, but the goal, keep Africa's population in check, to keep Western access to African wealth in place. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's declassified USA foreign policy. And if you've ever wondered why African nations rich in oil and gold still struggle with poverty, maybe the real issue wasn't overpopulation. Maybe it was over-manipulation. This is the Africa they plan to silence. But I'm here to show you.
Why does the fear of Russia only exist in the West? A lot of Westerners see African people side with Russia. Then they jump to the conclusion that they are bad guys as well. But actually, it's the West that's been propagandized to think that the West is good. Because the last 300 years, the bad guy in Africa has not been Russia, it's been Western Europe and America. Because the Russians didn't murder and enslave millions of Africans. Western Europe did that. And Russia didn't colonize Africa and wipe out and erase thousands of years of cultural heritage. And Russia certainly didn't strip the continent of its natural resources. That's why people like Ibrahim Traore from Burkina Faso is standing up to the West. And he's backed by Russia. And he's been dropping some hard truths that the West does not want to hear. But do you know what Russia did do in 1945 to help the continent free itself from Europe? Follow for part 2.
Why is the West, and particularly America, pushing their social agenda so hard on the Africans? This isn't really a business discussion, but since it's been asked in so many of my comments, I figured I'd take a stab at answering it. If you've followed the news, you've seen that many Western leaders have been making trips to Africa, and in every case, they've been pushing at their number one agenda, social change in Africa. Meanwhile, countries like China and Russia have been pushing infrastructure investments, military partnerships, and trade deals that would benefit the Africans in the mid, short, and long term. The first thing you need to understand about the West is that they don't actually care about these issues. What they are looking to do is create tension within those societies. Now, you may think, what if we gave in to the West on social reforms that they're asking for? What I can tell you from living in the West is, as soon as you get to the point where you can agree on these social reforms, they're going to come out with the next level that's going to be even more extreme. And then after a couple years, when you get used to that, they'll come out with another group of social issues for you to argue about. And the reason for this is that as the people are arguing over these various social issues, and as the culture is adjusting to these changes, the people in these countries are going to be taken advantage of. We've seen this in America, where many Americans are very poor and they've been hurt by inflation. But what are they actually arguing about? They're arguing over which bathrooms to use. And this is deliberate. The idea is to keep the people's eyes off the ball so that the insiders can take advantage of the situation. Now, many Africans, because they haven't been exposed to these social issues as long as Americans have, they're more quick to reject them, and that, I think, is working to their benefit. Again, the key thing to remember is the West does not actually care about these issues. What they care about is you fighting amongst yourself over these issues so that you can be taken advantage of. This is kind of like a used car dealer that wants you to argue over payments or colors as opposed to the price itself. It's a way to keep your eye off the ball. If you know this, you can see what the West is doing every single time. But let me know what you think. Have you seen these social issues being pushed in your country? And if so, how have you and the people you know reacted to it? I'm interested to hear what you guys think on the ground. And as always, if this video provided value to you, give me a like and a follow. That really helps out my channel, and I will see you on the next video.
I'm been very concerned lately about China and sort of we have transferred so much money from our economy over to China by buying all those things and supporting their economy over there so they could make more and more money. You know, they're in Africa. They're lending money to countries to build ports and different infrastructure.
To build what?
Port.
And what's wrong with that?
And well, because
countries that need ports get ports.
But they're making people dependent on. I mean, I know it's the same thing that we've done, which is
no, it's
horrible
not.
Around the world.
They are far more humanistic than the United States ever was.
Really? Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. So.
Let me give you an example. Of course, they are peddling for influence.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they are non-interventionist. Absolutely non-interventionist in a way that Europeans, the West, has never managed to fathom.
Let me show you guys why the rest of the world is afraid for Africa to unite. And if you don't believe what I'm saying, every time that we've got a leader, we've got a musician, Bob Marley even made a whole song, Africa Unite. Every time we've got some kind of leader that was preaching Africa Unite, the person disappeared. But let me show you guys why. You see this map on the screen. The outer part is the continent of Africa. And all these countries fit in the continent of Africa. Do you see that? US is there, European countries are there, even China, parts of China. So all these countries fit in Africa. So just imagine how big Africa is. In fact, it all started from a conference held somewhere in Germany called the Berlin Conference, where a group of major European countries met and they decided that they were going to split the spoils in Africa. Africans were sitting in their home minding their own business, and a group of people were sitting down to decide how they were going to divide the spoils. And they took 3 months for that conference. So my question is, African leaders, if they can take 3 months to divide us, why can't we take 3 months to break down those borders? Why do we need years and talking and conference and talking? Think about it. It took 3 months to do this deal, and they broke the continent. Well, the spoils have fed all of them. The spoils have fed and developed all of them, and their children's children are enjoying, where we have been left impoverished, and they dare say that Africa is not civilized. So imagine that these small countries come together, having like 70-80% of the world's natural resource. And then mind you, some have not even been discovered. Holding most of the world's natural resources, they'll be in big trouble. How to give a little visual for those of you who say that Africa is not poor, right? We are just still being colonized by some people, and Africans are sleeping. But we are awake now. We are waking up. Wake up. Don't sleep. Wake up. This time and this group of Africans are different. We are rising up and we are coming for what is ours.